I'm now going to skip ahead to the part where they're in the woods walking through it. Meredith watched the ground, trying to avoid the tree roots that seemed to want to trip those wandering through the woods. She was so focused on the ground, she did not notice Danielle had stopped in front of her until the bony edge of Danielle's shoulder collided with her head a second later. "Why'd you stop?" She rubbed her head. Danielle pointed to a tree ahead of them. Meredith's eyebrows rose as she took in the oak tree. It was tall, spanning over 80 feet, and it had a diameter of at least 10 feet. The tree was flecked with different tones of light and dark brown. Fireflies flew around the tree, lighting the vicinity with a golden glow, making it seem as if the leaves were shining a bright emerald green. Even without the fireflies illuminating the tree, the leaves seemed to be glowing on their own. But stranger yet was the door right in the middle of the trunk. It was a bright green door with a golden knob, and in the door were intricate carvings of oceans, dragons, mermaids, gnomes, elves, and sea monsters. They stared at it for a few minutes in awed silence before Meredith spoke, her voice bringing them all to their senses like an alarm clock waking someone from a deep slumber. "It can't be real. I bet it's a fancy thing one of those old people living out in the woods built. The door could be one of those library tree things you see on the internet," Meredith said. Lewis walked up to the tree and ran his hand over the trunk. "It's real, but I've never seen it out here before." He squinted at the tree, confused. His hand moved from the trunk to the door, where he ran his fingers across the carvings of ocean waves. Then he slowly moved his hand from the carvings to the doorknob. "If I tried it, do you think it would open?" Danielle shook herself and walked up to Lewis's side. "There's only one way to find out." She put her hand on the doorknob, but Lewis held up his hand to stop her. "Did you hear that?" His voice was quiet, and he pressed his ear against the trunk of the tree. "Hear what?" Meredith walked closer to the tree, but she kept a distance of about 6 paces away. For some unexplainable reason, it felt like there was something drawing her towards the tree like magnets attracted to one another. She did not like the feeling, so she resisted the urge to walk closer. "Singing. It sounds like life, joy, growth." Lewis's sky blue eyes widened and his eyelids dropped closed, as if soaking in the melody of the song he heard, but no one else did. Meanwhile, Danielle turned to the doorknob. "Danny, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" Meredith took a step towards the tree, and as she did, the pull grew stronger. It seemed to be tugging at her, begging her to step up to the tree. She gasped and took a step back, but Danielle didn't seem to notice. "It's a door in a tree. I would be a fool to not investigate. Think, it'd make a great story to tell people." Danielle continued to turn the doorknob. "But what about the party?" Meredith asked, biting her lower lip. Her heart beat like a drum in her chest. There was something about this tree that was off. "Who cares about the party? This is far more interesting." Danielle's green eyes glowed with curiosity as she finished turning the doorknob. There was a click. The knob slowly rotated, sounding like the gears of a grandfather clock. When the click sounded, Lewis jerked away from the tree. His eyes were wide, his tan skin had grown pale, and he staggered toward Meredith like he was drunk. "What's wrong?" Meredith grasped him by the arm, supporting him. "I don't know. The voices died away, and the tree sounded like a clock. Then I heard chanting, like one voice was saying over and over." His eyes focused on Danielle, who stood in the doorway of the tree for a brief second before she took a step inside. The shadows inside the tree made her form appear dark and foreboding. "Danny, stop!" He ran towards the tree, and Meredith, forgetting the pull of the tree in the excitement, followed him. They were too late. As soon as they reached the base of the tree, Danielle looked around and with her eyes shining as if entranced, pulled the door closed. Lewis tugged on the doorknob. Danny, can you hear me?" He tried to twist the golden knob, but it did not budge. He tugged on it, putting all his weight into wrenching it open. It still did not move. "What's going on? What did you hear?" Meredith wrung her hands. Lewis didn't answer. He took several steps away from the tree, stopped, and ran towards the door, trying to kick it down like a cop would in a TV show. The door did not so much as creak. Meredith ran to Lewis and grabbed his arm. He spun to face her, his breath coming out in gasps. "Stop! You're not accomplishing anything. What happened?" Meredith stood as tall as she could, looked him straight in the eyes, and yelled at him, trying to snap him out of his panic. "The tree, it was chanting when I had my ear up to it. It said, 'Come inside.'" Lewis's face was white. Meredith's heart thumped in her chest. A tree singing and talking? A gust of cold air rushed around her, sending a chill down her spine. The world seemed quiet. The sound of birds flying in the air, crickets chirping, and animals rustling in the bushes vanished. Even the glow of the fireflies seemed eerie, looking more like a faint dull green than a golden yellow.